So the 7-step process, here it is. This, again, like I said, is in place once we've gone through the necessary steps of a physiotherapist, a chiropractor, an osteopath, a massage therapist, surgery, whatever it is. This is where it sort of then comes in. It's the last link in the chain. As a client of mine said, this was the last link in the chain to make me normal again. And she had gone through surgery, she'd gone through physio, and then it was down to me to then do exactly as I've described before, which is correct the overuse and the misuse of the human body and bring it back into a little bit more of a alignment with how it wants to work. So exercise for low back pain, what is it? Well, I've just put that little description up there. It's exercise that conditions the body to cope with the rigors of life. So things like sitting in a car, you may not think your body needs any strength or endurance to do that. But unfortunately, if you get low back pain or you get hip pain when you are sat in the car, your body's not conditioned to cope with the rigors of your life because it's creating that pain to say there's a problem, there's a problem, there's a problem. So this type of exercise is in place to condition your body to sort of help you in just general life. I'm not talking about sport specific. I'm not talking about going to the gym for training for a half marathon. I'm not talking about losing weight and toning up. I'm just talking about, can your body get through life with minimal amounts of pain? That's what this is for. Once we've mastered these 7 steps here, we can then move on to any sport specific. So if you are a runner, if you are a cyclist, if you are a sports person, I don't want you to stop training for your sport, but I want you to give these 7 steps a very, what's the word? A very sort of big lot of attention, if you know what I mean. So just give it a lot more onus when you do your training, and use this 7-step process in place of your sport specific training, because you still will be able to do it. It's just you need to regress back from that, and maybe take some time away from that, build a strong foundation, and then go back to your sport specific training. So don't completely stop, but you may have to reduce it significantly to allow these 7 steps to really work for you. Because if you don't use these 7, if you don't regress back and you just continue on with what you're doing, that potentially is the cause of it. So you're basically exacerbating and continuing with the cause of your low back pain, if that makes sense. So again, I don't want to offend anyone and say you've got to stop your training. It's more in place just to sort of give you a much better start in the long term. Because in the short term, your sport may suffer, but in the long term, it's only going to be enhanced because you've got a greater foundation, which is what these 7 steps are, if that makes sense. I think I've sort of gone the long way round to explain that, but hopefully the message has got across. So, the 7 steps. First one is remove the cause. Now, what I mean by remove the cause is not quite what I've been talking about before. So if you get low back pain whilst you're sat in your car for 2 hours, and you have to do that because it's a commute to work, then obviously you're not going to be able to remove that cause because you've got to get to work. You've got to drive the 2 hours to get to work. But what we can do in the car or wherever it is we can adjust our posture. So for instance, we can sit down in the seat, we could sit forward in the seat, we could sit and lean on one side, we could sit and lean on the other side, we could change our hand positions, we could change our foot position, we could bring our foot position close to the seat. Obviously, we won't be able to move the ones that are on the pedal, but we can move the other one that isn't maybe doing something. So again, we can adjust the posture. What that adjustment is going to do, that's going to help move the joints into slightly different positions, which is going to relieve the pressure through the hips and through the back. And the same goes if we sit in an office. So if we sit in an office, we can do the same. We can sit forward, we can sit back, we can sit upright, we can slouch forward, we can slouch to the side, we can slouch to the other side. So again, what we're doing is we're changing the position of our body in that seat so it can relieve and disperse the pressure through the spine. So step one means you need to be in some ways creative in, okay, well, where is my back pain coming on, and how can I adjust myself in those positions to remove or reduce that posture? If we stand up in the day, is there something that we can lean against? Is there something we could sit on? Is there, could I lean onto my left leg? Could I lean onto my right leg? What we have to be able to do is keep our body moving in a minimal way. So sort of step number one is to remove that cause. Step number two is to understand the neutral posture. So the neutral posture of the hips and the neutral posture of the spine, and potentially the neutral posture of the knee, the ankle and the shoulders as well. Now, not only in that static position, but also when we're in standing dynamic positions as well. So we may be carrying something. What's the best position for our hips, shoulders, feet, knees and spine when we're carrying something? What's the best neutral posture when we are lifting something from the floor? What's the best neutral posture when we are pushing a door open, pulling a door open? So we need to understand the neutral posture and also correct technique, because when we are lifting we need to use that correct technique and maintain neutral postures in the ankles and in the spine to be able to do that. So first of all, once we've removed the cause, we're starting to move our body around. So we are starting to experience less low back pain, sort of just because we are moving around that little bit more. When we move on to step number two, we're then looking at, okay, well, what is the correct technique for lifting? What is the correct technique for pushing a door open? What is the correct technique for standing? What is the correct technique for pulling a door open? Walking upstairs, walking in general, carrying things, lifting things. So we look at that neutral posture. We get that nice and correct. What we then do is we then move on to endurance. Now, endurance is slightly different than what people think it is. When it comes to the core, most people think I need core strength, but strength is something that's immediate and it only lasts for a few seconds. When we talk about endurance, endurance is something that's more sustainable. So with regards to our core, we then need to start building endurance. So if we are repeatedly lifting things throughout the day, our body can cope with the repeated loading, which goes back to that definition I was talking about, goes back to that repeated loading of the spine. So what we have to do is find the neutral postures and then build endurance on top of that. Once we've built that endurance, that's kind of like phase one, which gives us step four, which is static control. With regards to static control, we need to be able to get our body into certain positions and stay in that neutral posture, and that sort of completes that phase one that I talked about. Because finding the neutral posture, building endurance on top of it, and then being in those positions for a period of time and staying there needs control, and it needs what is known as static control. So phase one is remove the cause. Phase two is understand the neutral posture, build endurance, which will give us static control, which then brings on to the final phase, which is mobility. So once we've protected the most important part of the body, which is the spine, we can then move on to the other joints. So we would then bring mobility to the shoulders, to the hips, and to the ankles. So all of this is basically layering on top of each other the condition that can help us cope with everyday life. So we start bringing about more mobility to the body. Once we've started bringing more mobility to the body, which involves stretching, massage, foam rolling, and also exercise, because what we have to understand with mobility and stretching is stretching doesn't necessarily give us extra mobility. Stretching gives us a window of opportunity to increase our range of movement so our body learns it. So what that means is if you just stretch a muscle, it will tend to get longer and then it will tend to go back to its original length. But if we stretch a muscle, so we stretch that muscle, open it out, we give ourselves a little bit of extra range of movement. If we then use exercise within that extra range of movement, our body will tend to learn that extra range of movement. So with regards to mobility, we have to use stretching, any complementary therapies like massage, foam rolling, if you've seen the little foam rollers in the gym. We have to use those alongside movement and exercise, so we're able to increase the range of movement and create more mobile joints. Once we've done that, it then comes on to pulsing. Now what pulsing means is, for instance, when we go to open a door, so we go to push a door open, so we see the little metal plate and it says push above it, so we go to push a door open. Now what happens is, as our hand hits that door, our core contracts as it sort of has created the momentum to push the door open, and as the door pushes open, our core will then relax. And that's what pulsing is. It's making sure our core contracts at the right time. Because if when our hand hits the door and we go to push the door open, we have a muscle that doesn't contract at the correct time, that's going to create extra pressure through our shoulder and down into our lower back or into our upper back. So we have to be able to create that pulsing mechanism within the spine. And there are certain exercises in which we can do that, but we have to create that pulsing mechanism, that contraction, relaxation, contraction mechanism. It's the same with lifting. When we go to initially lift, we contract. As we lift through the movement, it will start to relax somewhat. Not completely, but it will start to relax somewhat. As we then catch the weight at the top of the movement, so as we stand up, it will then contract again. What that then gives us, or will start to give us, is a mobile control. So again, as we move around and deviate our posture, we need to be in control of that mobility. So again, all of these 7 steps are progressing us and layering health and fitness and mobility and stability on top of each other, so we are creating a body that is conditioned to cope with the rigors of life. That then puts you in the best position to go into a sport, to go into your hobby without being held back because you keep feeling pain sat in your desk or sat in your car or something like that. So that is what exercise for low back pain is built for, and that's what the 7-step process is built to help you towards. So I hope all of this has been helpful. Please do come to the website christopherhall.com, find out more. You can click the link at the bottom of this. You've probably seen all the little subtitles come up to say click the link below. And yes, I hope to speak to you in another video. Okay, many thanks, and I'll speak to you soon.